Chapter 25-27. So it's you, venerated Ming. Song Qing-shu finally understood why he hadn't seen venerated Ming for a long time and why the old man from the mountain was with Kublai. So venerated Ming had become Kublai. Previously, he was wondering why Jinlun Fuwang, Nimixing, and the other experts that Kublai trusted for a long time would stay in Goryeo and not take them with him. He was probably worried that these people who knew him would notice the change in Kublai. Also, the Mongolian imperial tutor Basiba had died during the invasion of Dongying. At the time, he thought that it was because the battle was too intense, but now that he thought about it, venerated Ming must have played a part in it. After all, Basiba and the others were highly respected in Mongolia and were very familiar with Kublai and the other higher-ups. Even though they were enemies, Song Qing-shu admired venerated Ming. He had stirred up a storm in Mongolia all by himself and had actually succeeded in replacing Kublai. There were many powerful Mongolians, including quite a few grandmasters. In the end, Song Qing-shu managed to get rid of all the obstacles in his way. Now that he had successfully taken over Kublai, and with the deaths of Temujin and Ali Buj, he should be able to succeed to the position of Great Khan. If it wasn't for him, venerated Ming would have succeeded already. Song Qing-shu had thought that it was already shocking enough for him to replace Kangxi, but compared to revered Ming, it was nothing. In all fairness, the difficulty of him replacing Kangxi was far less than the difficulty of revered Ming seizing the foundation of Mongolia. But now that he had taken over Kublai, he had obviously given up on Zhang Wuji's body. Where was Zhang Wuji now? Was he dead or in a vegetative state? Or would he regain consciousness? He suddenly felt lucky that he had given Priest Baishan and Leader Jin Gang the 3 corpses brain pill. If they hadn't betrayed him, he would have been the one to be killed when he approached Kublai unprepared. In just a short period of time, venerated Ming had already sucked Taoist Priest 100 Damages dry. He tossed the corpses of Taoist Priest 100 Damages and Sect Master Vajra on the ground. When he looked at Song Qing-shu, his eyes were filled with rage. Song, you're really my lifelong enemy. You've already ruined my plans in the Chinese plains, and this time, when I finally succeeded in my plans in Mongolia, everything was ruined because of you. How could he not be angry? After all, he had ambushed the Tongtian shaman and had secretly gotten rid of Temujin's trusted aides. In Goryeo, he had used the Grandmaster Kai Lin to get rid of the last obstacle to the Mongolians, the evil Master Pangban. He had seen him conquer Dong Ing under the new identity of Kublai. When he returned to Mongolia, he would be the ruler of the world. Who would have thought that their main force would be annihilated by Song Qing-shu at the Strait of Tsushima? More importantly, his identity had been exposed. He had already noticed that many Mongolian warriors were looking at him with bewilderment in their eyes. Only the old man of the mountain and the many precious tree kings under his command could be considered reliable. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound, in for a pound. All the Mongolians here have to die, and there aren't many of them left anyway. As for the people on Song Qing-shu's side, the Mongolian headquarters might not believe their words. Right now, Song Qing-shu didn't have time to reply because he realized a serious problem. Now that venerated Ming had absorbed the power of 3 grandmasters, his inner force must have become terrifying. More importantly, there were also 2 Japanese sword saints. If he wasn't careful, he might turn from the hunter to the hunted. Therefore, he had to get rid of these 2 Japanese sword saints as soon as possible so that they wouldn't have the chance to form a joint attack. However, be it Wizumi Shinsuna or Tsukasa Hilvura, although they couldn't compare to Temujin or the Sweeper Monk, they were all grandmasters. Moreover, Japanese martial arts had their own style, and their swordsmanship was unpredictable. For a moment, Song Qing-shu didn't know what to do. At this moment, venerated Ming seemed to have realized this as well. He laughed and said, Song Qing-shu, although my army has been wiped out by you this time, as long as I can kill you, the world will be mine. After saying that, he flew over, planning to join forces with the 2 Japanese sword saints to kill Song Qing-shu as soon as possible to prevent any unforeseen events from happening. At this moment, a delicate shout rang out. A green silhouette blocked his path. She held the dog-beating stick in her hand and used the entanglement formula, trying to stop him for a moment. Song Qingshu was shocked. Why did she suddenly appear? How could she be a match for a grandmaster? As expected, the exquisite dog-beating stick technique could not even withstand a single blow from venerated Ming. With a casual palm, he broke the dog-beating stick in her hand into two. His other hand instantly grabbed her throat. Just as he was about to twist her neck, he suddenly saw Huang Rong's bright and beautiful face. The tender feeling of her skin came from his palm. Venerated Ming's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly felt that it was a pity to kill such a beautiful woman just like that. Previously, when he was in Zhang Wuji's body, he didn't know what was going on, but he couldn't get close to women. He had been holding it in for a long time. This time, he was willing to take the risk to take over Hu Bailey's body again because he couldn't have sex in his previous body. It was too much of a pity to kill such a beautiful woman just like that. I'll slowly enjoy her after I kill that Song Qingshu. As soon as this thought appeared, venerated Ming changed his twist to a slap. He pressed his palm on Huang Rong's shoulder. Huang Rong felt her body go limp, and then she could no longer stand and fell to the ground. Huang Yaoshi's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He had already rushed over. First, he used the divine flicking finger to shoot at venerated Ming's acupoints. At the same time, he used the mysterious 9 turns technique. He was prepared to use this technique against the other 4 masters in the 3rd sword meet of Mount Hua. However, venerated Ming now had the power of 3 grandmasters. With a casual wave of his hand, he swept aside the pebble shot by Huang Yaoshi's divine flicking finger. Then, he used his other hand to slap Huang Yaoshi's chest. No matter what Huang Yaoshi did to block it, he couldn't stop this slap. Huang Yaoshi coughed up blood. If he hadn't experienced the Battle of Mount Wudang and learned a lot from the battle between grandmasters, this slap would have taken his life. Venerated Ming didn't have any tender feelings for the old man in front of him. Just as he was about to end Eastern Heretic's life, a cold light came from the side. Even venerated Ming had to dodge it. Good swordsmanship. Seeing Xiao Longnu's dual sword harmony attack, revered Ming secretly sighed in admiration. If it was a martial grandmaster who used the dual sword harmony, even he would have a hard time dealing with such an exquisite sword technique. However, his opponent's internal energy was far too weak. Naturally, he would not be like Jinluan Fuwang and foolishly compete with his opponent's techniques. Instead, he would use his internal energy to win. Amidst the flashing shadows of the sword, Xiao Longnu's palm landed on the body of his opponent's sword. Xiao Longnu let out a soft cry as she felt a huge force coming from her palm. She could no longer hold the sword in her hand and lost one of her swords. The combination of the 2 swords was broken immediately. Looking at Xiao Longnu's flawless face, revered Ming thought that this girl's beauty was no less than Zhao Min's and Zhou Zhiruo's. The one with the surname Song. You stole so many of my women. This time, all your women will be mine. Venerated Ming had been using the identity of Zhang Wuji for so long that many of his ways of thinking still couldn't escape from Zhang Wuji's shadow. Just as he was about to subdue Xiao Longnu, another shout came from behind him. Another sword aura pierced towards him. Venerated Ming turned around and saw who it was. He couldn't help but laugh. Lady Jean, I thought it was a pity that I let you escape. I didn't think that you would come to me on your own. Jean Bingyun's face was full of anger. Venerated Ming, you plotted against my teacher. Today, I will take revenge for him. Venerated Ming laughed. Pang Ban has been cultivating his Dao heart for a long time. He carefully cultivated a demonic medium like you. It's a pity that he didn't have the chance to enjoy you. Now that I look at it, it was all for me. Not only did he give me his vast power, he also gave me his beloved woman. Speaking of which, I'm really embarrassed. Shameless. Even though Jean Bingyun's heart was cold, she was so angry that her face turned red. She unleashed 120% of the martial arts that Pang Ban had taught her. However, it was a pity that revered Ming had already grabbed her wrist and was about to press on the soft acupoint on her waist. Give me back my teacher's life. At this moment, the Fu sisters stabbed towards him from the left and right. They were all great grandmasters. Even though their power was still lacking, their attainments in martial arts far surpassed that of ordinary people. The Fu sisters attacked hatefully. Their coordination was impeccable, and they unleashed the power of the bright sword technique to its fullest. Venerated Ming could only temporarily give up on taking advantage of Jin Bingyun. Instead, he used the heaven and earth great shift to change the direction of the Fu sisters' swords, causing them to stab towards each other. Of course, he purposely held back. He didn't let the two ladies' swords point at each other's vital parts. After all, be it Fu Junyi or Fu Junyu, they were all one in a million beauties. They were the national treasures of the entire Gaoli country. Looks like the heavens are trying to make up for my hardships of being a vegetarian all these years. They've sent me so many beauties at once. I want all of them. The Fu sisters were all injured. At this moment, Jiao and Xia Qingqing also rushed over with their swords in hand. The two ladies' martial arts were not bad, and they often dual cultivated with Song Qing and receive his guidance. Especially Jiao. Her current combat power was not inferior to that of a grandmaster. At this moment, Xiaolong Nu picked up a new sword and rushed over. Together with the Heaven's Fate Cult's leader, Dan Yuru, and Jin Bingyun, who had regained her senses, even the Fu sisters continued to attack. Venerated Ming couldn't help but be shocked and angry. Actually, with his skills, it wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with these women. However, these women's martial arts were not weak. It would take some time to completely subdue them. It would be troublesome if Song Qing was freed up. What is this bastard Huashan doing? Why isn't he coming over to help? Venerated Ming scanned the battlefield from the corner of his eyes. He was shocked to find that Huashan and the 12 precious tree kings were being cut up by a yellow-robed woman with green feathers. They had fallen into a predicament of fighting their own battles. How could they find the time to help him? How could he not recognize Hua Qingtong? He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. In his heart, Hua Qingtong was his fiancée. Although he hadn't heard from her recently, why did she run over to help another man to deal with him? On the other side, Song Qingshu's face was as dark as still water. He was very clear about the situation over there, but he also knew that it was useless to worry. The only thing he could do now was to finish off the two enemies in front of him as soon as possible. If others knew what he was thinking, they would probably think he was crazy. It had to be known that when a martial grandmaster fought two against one, it was always a sure-win situation. The one who was alone didn't have to consider how to win, but whether or not he could escape with his life. After all, even someone as powerful as the sweeping monk had fallen under the joint attack of Patriarch Sunflower and Lin Chaoying. Right now, the two Japanese sword sages were obviously thinking the same thing. Wizumi Shinsuna said, "Song-san, you're the person with the best martial arts we've ever seen in our lives. You're actually not at a disadvantage even under the joint attack of me and Mizuhara. It's really admirable." Mizuhara Bisucha nodded and said, "That's right. All these years, when Wizumi and I were in Japan, almost no one was qualified to make us use a second move, let alone the two of us joining forces." Song Qingshu snorted coldly. "Don't talk so much nonsense. If you want to fight, then hurry up and fight. Is that all you're capable of? To think that you're qualified to be called sword sages with such sloppy and ordinary sword techniques. It can be seen that the Japanese are really lacking in talent." The two of them were stunned and said angrily, "We respect you as a hero. Since that's the case, we'll use our strongest move to send you on your way." Serene style one flash. Wizumi Shinsuna jumped out of the battle while Mizuhara Bisuchuan was holding his opponent back. He held his sword with both hands, and his aura suddenly changed. Serene style had 3 ultimate moves: the Killing Blade, the Living Sword, and the Bladeless Takedown. However, regardless of whether it was the Living Sword or the Bladeless Takedown, it was usually used to crush other experts. Against a Grandmaster, one still had to rely on his Killing Blade. His figure suddenly became blurry. Then, 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8. The split figures surrounded Song Qingshu in the center, forming a circle. "Hua Qingtong, who was commanding the troops not far away, had a change in expression because she could feel that the other party's figure was not an illusion, but a real existence. She did not know how he did it. One sword sage was already so powerful. Now that there were so many sword sages, how could Brother Song deal with them? The serene style's killing blade really lives up to its name. Mizvura, Bisanin muttered, "Let this arrogant guy from the Central Plains witness the ultimate move of our serene style." Secret sword first Tachi. With a leap, he descended from the sky. The sword in his hand instantly turned into countless sword shadows. It was like a torrential rain, but also like the sun shining, making it impossible for anyone to dodge. Wizumi Shinsuna's ultimate move attacked from all directions, while Mizuhara Busuchuan's ultimate move sealed the only exit from the sky. Seeing that Song Qingshu was about to fall before the two's powerful ultimate moves, the people not far away were all shocked. Song Qingshu sighed. "Wouldn't it have been better if you had used your full strength earlier?" The two opponents were two grandmasters, both of whom had experienced hundreds of battles and had rich combat experience. If they were to fight seriously, it would take dozens or even hundreds of moves to determine the victor. However, he was worried about the safety of the women, so how could he wait that long? Therefore, he had deliberately provoked them with words. Originally, the two sword sages would not fall for such a provocation so easily. However, the other party had directly escalated to the point of looking down on the Japanese pugilistic world, and the Japanese could be said to have a love-hate relationship with the Central Plains. Therefore, the two of them fell for the trap. When they felt that the time was right, they joined forces to use their full strength, wanting to clear the name of the Japanese pugilistic world. Suddenly, a shocking sword chi rose in the field. A sword chi that was dozens of meters long soared into the sky, and the sword chi in the two's hands instantly dimmed. The two figures fell to the ground in defeat. Song Qingshu slowly walked out and said indifferently, "Do you think you're worthy of being called sword sages?" He felt that tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow at the latest, would be the end of the battle. Chapter 25-28. On the other side, Venerated Ming was surrounded by the women and had no time to cooperate with the two Japanese sword sages to deal with Song Qingshu. Although none of these women were a match for him, they worked together, causing him to be unable to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. It was still quite troublesome to completely subdue them. The main reason was that he couldn't bear to destroy the flowers in the beginning, causing the women to have nothing to fear, causing him to be restrained instead. However, after about 10 moves, Venerated Ming became ruthless. These women were beautiful, but there were many more beautiful women in the world. Putting everything else aside, more than half of Song Qingshu's close female friends weren't here. As long as I take over the world, what kind of woman can I have? With a thought, he immediately dispelled the idea of having tender feelings for the fairer sex and decided to deal with Song Qingshu first. Therefore, he no longer showed any mercy and instantly broke the women's cooperation. Xiao Long knew and the others all vomited blood and fell to the back. Clearly, they no longer had the strength to fight. Xia Qingqing's martial arts were slightly weaker, but she was the least injured in this round. Seeing him rushing towards Song Qingshu, although she was afraid, she still summoned her courage and blocked his path. Scram! Venerated Ming was furious and slashed towards her. Qingqing! Ajio was shocked and hurriedly swung his sword to save her. Venerated Ming snorted coldly and pressed his hand against the tip of his opponent's sword. Ajio's sword that could cut through iron like mud shattered like a porcelain doll. He could only watch helplessly as his opponent's terrifying palm pressed down on his head. On the other side, Xia Qingqing's golden snake sword was also broken by his palm. His opponent's palm was about to land on her chest. The two women knew that they wouldn't be able to escape and closed their eyes in resignation. It was a pity that they didn't even have time to see Brother Song for the last time. However, after a while, the pain they imagined didn't come. Instead, they fell into a warm and familiar embrace. The two women opened their eyes in disbelief and saw Song Qingshu hugging them from both sides. They both exclaimed, Brother Song, I made you suffer. Song Qingshu's heart was filled with regret. All these years, they hadn't been together much. Now he actually had to pay the price with their lives to stop the enemy. He owed them too much. Not bitter at all. The two girls answered in unison, and then looked at each other, both of their pretty faces slightly red. At this moment, venerated Ming's voice rang out. He said with a dark expression, "You actually managed to deal with the two great sword saints, Suzuhara Busuchuan and Wizumi Nobitsuna, so quickly." Although the fight with the women had seemed very troublesome, it had only lasted for about 10 breaths of time. In the end, the other party had dealt with the two great grandmasters so quickly. This really surprised him. With a gentle force, Song Qingshu pushed Ajio, Xia Qingqing, and the other women behind Hua Qingtong to prevent them from being in any more danger. Then, he said, if the two of them were great grandmasters in other fields, perhaps it would not be so easy for me to deal with them. Unfortunately, both of them used swords. To use swords in front of me, he didn't continue, but his meaning was quite obvious. Too trash. Revered Ming retracted his gaze. Although he was a little surprised, he didn't panic at all. I didn't expect your martial arts to improve so much after we parted ways in Mongolia. Same here. Song Qingshu looked at him. Your martial arts are worlds apart from when you were in Lin City. You've absorbed Devil Master Pang Ban, Bright Sword Master Fu Kalen, and possibly many other top-notch experts. The current you is indeed shockingly powerful. Revered Ming laughed out loud. So you should also know that although I fell for your trap this time and caused the Mongolian main force to be wiped out, you've still done all of this for me. As long as I kill you today, how can these troops here stop me? When I return to the Central Plains, your foundation will fall into my hands bit by bit. Great grandmasters were already the pinnacle of martial arts in this world. Members of the royal family who were at the level of the 5 uniques were powerless in the face of an army. However, unless great grandmasters were surrounded by a large number of cavalry on an open plain or in a situation where they had no choice but to fight to the death, the army would not be able to kill them. At the very least, it would be very easy for them to escape if they wanted to. Moreover, Revered Ming wasn't an ordinary great grandmaster, so he naturally had more confidence. Aren't you a little too confident? Song Qingshu smiled. Have you never thought that you would die here today? That's absolutely impossible. Revered Ming's expression turned cold. Oh well, young man, you refuse to give up until you reach the end of your rope. Today, I'll let you see what despair is. Suddenly, shrill crows' cries rose in the battlefield. Crows' cries were already very piercing and unpleasant to the ears, but at that moment, the crows' cries in the air were even stranger than actual crows. It was as if they contained some sort of magical power. And it was as if they were sounds that came from hell. The slaughter in the battlefield had long since stopped, and everyone felt their hearts tremble. They felt as if the gates to hell would open at the next moment, and countless malicious spirits would run out to claim their lives. Revered Ming spread out both of his hands. His entire body didn't move in the slightest, but he actually rose up into the air and floated in mid-air. Between his hands, there were all sorts of black shadows. These black shadows slowly enlarged, turning into strange pitch-black crows. All of the crows gathered together and formed a pair of gigantic black wings. Revered Ming's entire body floated in midair, looking like a demonic god. Is this guy even human? An inexplicable fear rose in everyone's heart. Even the usually iron-blooded army subconsciously moved back, wanting to be as far away from this guy as possible. Is this the kung fu that you secretly learned from the Tongtian shaman? Song Qingshu had fought with the Tongtian shaman before, and at that time, he had also used a similar kung fu. Even Temujin and Pang Ban did not notice anything unusual. Clearly, this was the original kung fu of the Tongtian shaman. But now that Revered Ming was using it, its power was many times greater than the one he Lin used. Moreover, from it, one could feel the Qian Kuan Grand Shift, the Absorbing Star's great technique, and even the Kung Fu of the Sacred Flame Order and Taiji Fist. Clearly, he had merged the essence of all his martial arts into one. Ha ha! the Tong Tian shaman can communicate with the longevity heaven. Although he talks all day long, the things he studies are really amazing and have benefited me a lot. Speaking of which, I'm quite grateful to him. Revered Ming recalled the days when he had to endure hardships by the side of the Tong Tian shaman, and a proud smile appeared on his face. Your way of thanking him is to suck all his power dry and then replace him? Song Qingshu laughed coldly. It's his honor to be able to contribute his power to me. Wait until you go to hell and exchange your knowledge with him. As soon as Revered Ming finished speaking, he put his hands together and two huge black wings flapped forward. A strong wind suddenly started blowing, and the normal soldiers were all blown away. Although he said that he was going to deal with Song Qingshu, the countless crows on his black wings flew towards everyone present. Clearly, he didn't want anyone to live after his impersonation of Kublai was exposed. The first to suffer was the Mongolian warrior closest to him. The crows touched his body, and it instantly withered into a dried corpse. Then, more crows broke out of the corpses. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He could tell that the other party must have used the principles of the great astral absorption technique, and then successfully created something that was like a virus that spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. If he was really allowed to fully display it, he might really be able to destroy an entire army by himself. He didn't dare to waste any time. His entire body spiraled into the sky and created a tornado to block the wind created by Revered Ming great technique. 10,000 swords returned to origin. As Revered Ming great technique spun, countless sword chi shot out from his body. The sword chi filled the sky and shot towards the flying crows. Countless black crows were nailed to the ground, and at the same time, countless sword chi were melted by the black crows in the sky. Revered Ming saw that the situation wasn't right. He waved his hands, and the black crows in the sky returned to the wings on his back. Then, they all disappeared into his body. Looks like I'll have to kill you first before dealing with the others. Song Qingshu sighed. It's not certain who'll be the one to kill who. Do you only know how to talk? Revered Ming harumphed and suddenly disappeared. Everyone else present stared with wide eyes. If one's speed was fast enough, one could indeed lose sight of one's figure for a short period of time. However, vanishing into thin air without leaving any afterimages was something no one had ever seen before. Ajio, where did Revered Ming go? Xia Qingqing couldn't help but ask. Ajio shook his head. Clearly, he didn't know either. Jean Bingyan wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and explained, Revered Ming has always been by Brother Song's side. He's attacking him from all angles. It's just that he's too fast, so it's hard to see him. Among the girls, her martial arts might not be the best. However, she had followed Devil Master Pang Ban since she was young, so her horizons were naturally not something an ordinary person could compare to. Although the Fu sisters were also with Fu Kalin, their cultivation levels were still much lower than hers. Hearing her explanation, everyone looked over. Sure enough, they could faintly see a strange weapon that resembled a ball of flames flashing continuously around Song Qingshu. That's the sacred flame insignia. Ajio had stayed in the Ming dynasty for a period of time, so he immediately recognized it. Why isn't Brother Song moving? Fu Jinyu was worried. She couldn't help but look at Jean Bingyan. Whether it was fighting alongside her or listening to her explanation, she was already full of admiration for this woman. It's not that he's not moving. Did you guys notice that every time the sacred flame insignia attacks, it'll be blocked by a void sword chi? Jean Bingyun explained as she looked nervously at the scene. Only then did the girls come to a realization. Looking carefully, they indeed saw that invisible sword. However, their cultivation levels were too low compared to the two people in the scene, so they couldn't see anything special about it. They could only occasionally see the two weapons coming into contact. Song Qingshu seemed to be standing motionless on the spot. Sword chi surrounded him. No matter how the wind blew, he remained as still as a mountain. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn, he finally moved. His figure flashed, and he suddenly swung his fist toward the void. Immediately after, a figure suddenly appeared out of thin air. The figure was sent flying backward by his punch, leaving a trail of blood in the air. Clearly, this punch had injured him quite badly. How is this possible? Venerated Ming half knelt on the ground. The bun on his head had been messed up, and his hair was disheveled. He looked at Song Qing-shu, who was not far away, with a face full of disbelief. Song Qing-shu sighed. I've already said that it's hard to say who will be the one to kill who. You just didn't believe me. Impossible. I have the power of 3 great grandmasters. No, if I include myself, I have the power of at least 4 great grandmasters. I should be invincible in this world. How can I not be able to defeat you? Impossible. Impossible. Revered Ming was extremely deranged. It was obvious that he couldn't accept such an outcome. There's nothing impossible in the world. I've already seen things at a higher level. Song Qing-shu recalled the magnificence of Ah Qing's sword, as well as Dugu's seeking for losses in human sword. Although Venerated Ming was far more powerful than those great grandmasters, he had even seen a true god. What else in the world could move him? Seeing that he seemed to be in a daze, Venerated Ming had an idea. He directly flew in the direction of the women. Although the distance between them was not close, with his movement technique, he could reach them in the blink of an eye. He grabbed Xiao Long Nu with one hand and Huang Rong with the other. He didn't show any mercy. Clearly, he was attacking Song Qing-shu to save him. Sensing that Song Qing-shu was also hurrying over, Venerated Ming laughed sinisterly. He suddenly turned around and instantly clasped on his Song Qing-shu's shoulder. His eyes shone with a strange gray light as he stared at Song Qing-shu's eyes. Ha ha ha, surnamed Song. Although your martial arts are high, you've still ended up helping me. Venerated Ming laughed maniacally. Song Qing-shu frowned. What's this? Revered Ming laughed and said, Tong Tian Shaman's attainments in the aspect of psyche energy are quite profound. His research has inspired me greatly. I've modified the body stealing technique according to his cultivation technique. Now I no longer need to cultivate the heaven and earth great shift to the 7th level. I can directly steal someone else's body. Although the cost is quite high every time, it's nothing compared to eternal life. Moreover, with the astral absorbing technique, I can preserve my cultivation to the greatest extent. You're planning to possess me? Song Qing-shu's eyes gradually began to turn gray. Venerated Ming had a smug look on his face. That's why I said that you're destined to help me. The foundation that you've worked so hard to build will become mine. Your women will also become my women. I'll take care of your wives and daughters, and you'll have nothing to worry about. Ha ha ha, shameless. Brother Song. The women were shocked. They all brandished their swords and tried to stab him. Unfortunately, countless black crows suddenly appeared behind him, preventing the women from getting close to him. You women will hate me now, but you'll love me to death later. After I've possessed Song Qing-shu's body, I'll use my powerful mental strength to brainwash you and make you forget what's happening now. You'll only see me as your real man. Venerated Ming's face was full of smugness. His mouth was dry. Although I'm a clean freak and only like girls who haven't experienced the ways of the world, you're all so beautiful. I don't mind poking you a few times. Ha ha ha, at this moment, a cold voice came from the other side. Why don't you think about why I'm so easily controlled by you? How can you still speak? Venerated Ming was shocked. He quickly increased the power of the possession technique. A hint of gold appeared in Song Qing-shu's eyes. The previous grayness melted like snow in contact with hot iron. I've been wondering how you could possess Zhang Wuji's body. After all, he couldn't have learned the 7-layer heaven and earth great shift. I was worried that you'd found a new technique to possess someone else's body. If that's the case, in a sense, you've already obtained eternal life. Even if I kill you, the host, you might still be able to escape to someone else's body. So if I want to kill you, I'll have to kill your soul. Just as he finished speaking, a small golden person wielding sword Qi grew larger and larger in his eyes. It directly entered his forehead. No, an inhuman scream came from Venerated Ming's body. Unfortunately, he couldn't stop the golden person at all. In the end, his eyes lost their light and he fell to the ground. The black crows that were surrounding the women also seemed to have lost their source of energy and disappeared into thin air. Big Brother Song. The women couldn't contain their joy when they saw him turn the tables. Fu Junyu pulled her sister's sleeve, but the two of them didn't rush over. Sister, what happened to the golden person just now? I don't know. I just felt a tremor in my soul. I felt like I couldn't move. Fu Junyi couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. We felt it, even though we were standing on the side. You don't know how desperate the person who was attacked was. How did this guy practice martial arts at such a young age? He's even more powerful than Master. Fu Junyu's eyes lit up. Fu Junyi smiled and said, "What's wrong? You don't want your precious jade anymore. Do you want to fall in love with someone else?" Sister, Fu Junyu immediately pouted. Once venerated Ming died, the remaining Mongolian soldiers either died or surrendered. The old man in the mountains saw that the situation wasn't right and was about to run away when Song Qingshu kicked the long sword beside his feet. The long sword moved like a beam of light. The old man in the mountain was unable to dodge it. The king of assassins died just like that. After the battle, Kublai and Ali Buy's elite soldiers were all annihilated. Only a few escaped back to Mongolia. The world was shocked when they heard the news. After this battle, the crown prince's faction and the prince's faction were all dead. Song Qingshu supported a remote young member of the royal family to ascend to the throne. At the same time, to ensure his own interests, he needed to leave a force to guard this place for a long time. However, the leader who stayed behind was in a difficult position. Ajiu and Xia Qingqing had their own territories to manage. Originally, the most suitable candidates were Fong, Yi, and Mu Jianpain, but they had been separated from him on Divine Dragon Island for so many years. He felt sorry for making them stay in the cold Goryeo so soon after they met again. In the end, Huang Rong volunteered to stay in Goryeo. Firstly, Huang Yaosher needed to stay behind to recuperate. Secondly, she wanted to help him deal with everything here. Song Qingshu was stunned at first, but then he understood. She probably didn't want to return to the Central Plains. After all, there were rumors about them everywhere in the Central Plains. Only in this foreign country could she be with him without any worries. At the same time, this period of time was the most relaxing she had been in many years. Therefore, Song Qingshu agreed. At the same time, he promised to find another confidant to replace him when he returned to China as soon as possible. However, Huang Rong told him not to worry. She didn't even mind staying here forever. Of course, she entrusted him to take care of a pair of children on Peach Blossom Island. It would be best if he could send the siblings over. Naturally, Song Qingshu agreed immediately. After settling everything in Goryeo, he took the fleet south to the Central Plains. Many of the high-ranking officials of Goryeo also went with him. Of course, the purpose was to study abroad and so on. At the same time, the Fu sisters also went south with him. They were still thinking about Brother Baoyu in Jiangnan. Ajiu and Xia Qingqing returned to the Golden Snake Battalion midway and didn't go to Linen. For some reason, they were not very willing to go to other women's territories. In order to make up for the guilt in his heart, during this period of time, Song Qingshu went to their rooms almost half of the time at night. Fong Yi and Mu Jianpain handed over the fleet of Divine Dragon Island to their subordinates, and then followed them to the southern Song dynasty. On the one hand, they had more time to spend with Song Qingshu. On the other hand, they wanted to go back to the Mu mansion to have a look. Hu Qingtong returned to Yangzhou midway. She was worried about her sister. Jin Bingyun and Dan Yuru also left at about the same time. During this period of time, they suddenly realized that although there were many women around Song Qingshu, basically everyone had their own territories and fields that could help him. The two women's base was in Mongolia. Out of a sense of crisis, the two women decided to go back to help Song Qingshu to the greatest extent. Of course, Jin Bingyun was passive in the whole process. She was not in the mood to think about these things. However, she was instigated by Dan Yuru and was finally persuaded. Song Qingshu went back to Lin and with Xiao Long Nu, Shui Baoqin, and the other women. Because of the great merit of annihilating all the elites of Mongolia, the southern Song dynasty had reached the point where there was no more reward for him. Someone suggested to give him 9 tin, but he refused because it was not the right time. As expected, When the news of him refusing 9-10 spread out, the whole country praised him. Instead, a lot of other kinds of official positions were given. Song Qing-shu took this opportunity to arrange and promote his trusted subordinates. His power was even greater than Jia Shidao's at his peak. After spending a celestial time with the women in Lin, news came from Mongolia again. When Oalahedni learned of the death of Kublai and Ali Buj, he couldn't help but be furious. He personally came out and took charge of the court. He called back the Joki clan and Chagatai clan that the Mongols had left in the western countries to intimidate the local people. Originally, the Joki clan and Chagatai clan didn't want to come back, but when they realized that the imperial clan was declining, they had a chance to take the position of Great Khan of Mongolia, so they all changed their minds. After a few months of rest, the Mongols brought the last hundreds of thousands of cavalry south. Their first stop was still to attack western Xia. Song Qing-shu had already received the news in advance and had discussed countermeasures with Mu Wanqing, Li Qinglu, and the others. Because the western Xia army had already been crippled by Temujin last time, if they were to fight head-on now, there would be no way out. Therefore, they surrendered to the Mongols. The Mongols had always been good at recruiting their enemies and using them as servants. Now that they were in need of manpower, they were very happy about western Xia's surrender. They gave the western Xia royal family a very good treatment and kept their own forces. Of course, western Xia had the obligation to provide logistical supplies to the Mongols, and they also needed to send troops to participate in the Mongols' next military campaign. Western Xia had been established for 100 years and had fought against the Song dynasty for 100 years without a clear winner. Their quick surrender shocked the southern Song dynasty. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. After the Mongols conquered western Xia, they marched their army east and attacked the Jin. Although the Mongols were weak on the water, they were still invincible on land. The Jin army was forced to retreat again and again. They even lost Chang, an important city in Guangzhou. But the Nuzhuran were also a fighting people. The fighting genes of their ancestors gradually awakened. After the Jin started to use Tongguan and the Yellow River as their defense line, they repelled the Mongols' invasions several times and stopped them from advancing. The mainstream view of the Southern Song dynasty was to see the two countries fight each other. After all, both the Mongols and the Jin were enemies. Comparatively speaking, the Mongols hated the Jin more. But what the Mongols did next made the Southern Song dynasty restless. They used the same trick and asked the Southern Song dynasty to bypass the Jin's defense line at Tongguan and the Yellow River. The Song people were not stupid. They wanted to see the Mongols and the Jin locked in a stalemate. It would be best if every last drop of blood was used. But the Mongols did not wait for the Southern Song dynasty to agree. They directly broke through Hanzhong and entered Nanyang from the Shangyong line. They went around to the hinterland of the Jin. The Jin fought in a hurry and were defeated. Because of the Mongols' attack and the fear of the Southern Song dynasty of being interdependent, Song Qing-shu finally had a reason to send his army. Had he not been there, the Southern Song court would have been furious, but they would probably have settled the matter in the end. But now, with a god of war like Song Qing-shu and with the several previous victories, the Southern Song court was much stronger. Therefore, Song Qing-shu led the army north and secretly contacted the Jin sisters. He communicated with the loyal army of the Jin. The armies of the two countries cooperated perfectly. In addition, the Western Xia army suddenly rebelled. After a decisive battle, the main force of the Mongols was completely destroyed. The imperial court of the Southern Song dynasty had originally sent Song Qing-shu to the north with the intention of slowing down the Mongolian invasion and helping the Jin kingdom a little so that the scales of victory could be balanced again. However, they did not expect that he would make a big news without a sound. The main force of the Mongols was destroyed, and the Western Xia surrendered to Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu really had no more rewards for such a great achievement. This time, someone suggested that Song Qing-shu should be rewarded with 9 pegs. No one objected. The imperial court officially rewarded Song Qing-shu with 9 pegs. He did not rush to enter the court, did not pay his respects, and entered the palace with a sword. The knowledgeable people in the imperial court knew that this was not a good sign for the royal family. After all, there were too many similar examples in history. But now, Song Qingshu was powerful in the court. After several great victories, he had an extremely high prestige in the world. Even the matter between Huang Rong and him was not a big deal to everyone. Instead, they felt that Huang Rong had taken advantage of him. Everyone treated it as a topic of conversation after a meal. Moreover, Song Qingshu's direct and indirect control of territory was no less than that of the southern Song dynasty. Countless armies were loyal to him. As a result, many of the southern Song dynasty's clans and knowledgeable people had already realized something. However, as the situation was like this, there was nothing they could do. Many people had even begun to pledge their loyalty to him. After all, the merit of attaining the throne was too tempting. At other times, there might be the risk of being exterminated. But now that Song Qingshu was the de facto emperor of the southern Song dynasty, what risk could there be? Under this trend, even the most loyal officials and families started to offer olive branches to Song Qingshu. After all, everyone had their own families and their own interests to consider. Under this premise, Song Qingshu found another opportunity to attack the Jin kingdom in the north. He won another great victory and recovered Bianjing. The whole country was in an uproar. The Song kingdom had been weak for many years. When had it ever been so mighty? Moreover, the recovery of Bianjing was the dream of many people. Jiao and Xia Qingqing led the Golden Snake camp. Zhou Zhuruo led the Green camp of Yangzhou, and Yang Miaozhen led the Redcoat army to completely merge with the southern Song dynasty. But everyone knew who they listened to. Song Qingshu's reputation reached an unprecedented height in the court and among the people. Under the instruction of the Grand Tutor, the young emperor of the southern Song dynasty offered to abdicate. Of course, Song Qingshu refused. After a lot of refusal, he finally accepted the emperor's abdication. He changed the country's name to Qi and became the emperor. He made Zhou Zhuruo his empress in Jiao and Ren Yingying his imperial concubines. In order to appease the old officials of the Song dynasty, the princesses of the southern Song dynasty were also given high titles in the imperial harem. Then, Song Qingshu continued the northern expedition. At the same time, he constantly sent people to summon the Jin kingdom to surrender. The Jin kingdom had suffered a great loss in the war against the Mongols. They had also lost a lot of strategic depth in the past years. In addition, Song Qingshu was so powerful that they knew it would be difficult to resist. In the past, Song Qingshu was a subject of the southern Song dynasty. Even though the Jin kingdom knew they were no match for him, they did not consider surrendering. After all, the hatred between the Jin kingdom and the Song dynasty was too deep. However, after Song Qingshu established a new country, the hatred between the two sides no longer existed. Even if there were some among the people and the royal family of the southern Song dynasty, it did not affect the overall situation. Therefore, under the operation of the Gubai sisters, the number one official, Tang Kuobian, in the country, and many generals of the loyal army were Song Qingshu's confidants. It could be said that everyone from the judges to the contestants were his people. Although there were still many hardliners in the Jin kingdom, they could not resist the general trend. In the end, they surrendered. After accepting the surrender of the Jin kingdom, Song Qingshu treated the royal family of the Jin kingdom well. At the same time, he kept most of the Jin kingdom's nobles and officials, but he added some checks and balances. The people of the Jin kingdom, who were originally anxious after the surrender, were all happy. Many people in the southern Song dynasty were somewhat critical of this, but Song Qingshu's prestige was too high. In history, it was relatively easy for the founding emperors to make any reforms. It was because of his high prestige that he had the military, financial, and personnel power in his hands. In addition, Song Qingshu secretly established the public opinion propaganda organization in the past few years, so he quickly reversed the criticism. At the same time, he treated the royal family of the Xixia kingdom well. He let Li Qinglu, Mu Wanqing, and others continue to lead the nobles of the Xixia kingdom to manage the original land. Of course, They would send hostages to the capital, and the imperial court would also send a group of officials there. For the ministers of subjugated country, this kind of treatment was simply overjoyed. Therefore, the Xixia kingdom and the Jin kingdom soon stabilized. After a dozen years of cultural education, they would be completely integrated into the big family. After that, Song Qingshu continued to lead the army to attack the Mongols in the north and drove the Mongols back to the north. After many years of attacks, the bloodline of the Golden family withered and finally could not suppress the Mongols anymore. The Mongols were divided into two parts, the Wala in the west and the Tartars in the east. The Wala and the Tartars each had several large tribes. Among them, Hai Wanli led the most powerful Wala tribe, and the Ryong Mansion led the most powerful Tartars tribe. Zhao Min avenged her father and helped her brother become independent. After that, she retreated and came to live with Song Qingshu. In addition to these two forces, Princess Yaluan also controlled some old subordinates. The hatred between the divided Mongols was also very deep, and they often fell into disputes, so they had no time to go south to the Central Plains. In the process of solving the Mongols, Liao also surrendered to the Qi kingdom. After all, Liao was no longer as powerful as before, and only a small area was left. In the past, with the support of the Mongols, it barely survived in the cracks between the Qin kingdom and the Jin kingdom. Now that the Mongols had fallen, Liao naturally had no hope. Of course, if it was not Su Quan who secretly controlled Liao, it would not be so easy to surrender. After Liao surrendered and the Mongols were completely divided, the attention of the world was on the Qin kingdom. Now, the Qin kingdom was basically surrounded by the forces of the Qi kingdom. With the help of the Koreans in the east, the Qin kingdom was soon shaken by the pressure of Song Qingshu's army. At this time, the situation of the Qin kingdom was the same as that of the Qi kingdom in the last years of the Spring and Autumn War. Although it still had great strength, the Qin kingdom had unified the world and its power was gone. It no longer wanted to resist. In addition, after the surrender of the Xixia kingdom and the Jin kingdom, the people of the Qin kingdom no longer had any worries, and it was natural for them to surrender. After Song Qingshu unified the world, the people of the Qin kingdom began to urge him to give the corresponding titles to the concubines. Although he was not willing to give the concubines the titles, he could not resist the etiquette, and many things could not be changed by his will. In the end, he conferred the title of empress to Zhou Zhihua, an imperial noble consort to Dongfang Muxue. In the eyes of the people, this imperial noble consort was extremely mysterious. Few people knew her origin, but she was unexpectedly able to become the highest-ranking concubine. She conferred the title of imperial consort to Jiu, Ren consort to Shu consort, Zhao Min consort to the consort, and Wanyan Jebi consort to Xian consort. Originally, she was not willing to enter the harem of Song Qingshu, but she could not resist his coaxing and pestering. In addition, she had given birth to a child with Tang Kuo's surname, so she could answer to her late husband. Mu Wanqing was consort Zhuang, Su Quan was consort Jing, Zhao Hu'er and Zhao Yunyuan were consorts Hui, Shui Baochai and Shui Baoqin were consort Shun, Xiao Qingqing was consort Kong, and Xiao Long Nu was consort Ning. Originally, Xiao Qingqing was not willing to enter the harem as a consort, but Song Qingshu was too domineering. In addition, everyone in the Golden Snake camp knew about their relationship, so she did not hide it. In addition, Song Qingshu intended to give Icy Snow a consort position because she was the first woman who treated him well after he came to this world. It could be said that the starting point and turning point of his fate were brought by her. The relationship between them was the purest, and it was not mixed with any interests. However, when he found her, she was unwilling. She could be with him in private, but she could not bring shame to her late husband's reputation. She would never agree to enter the harem openly. Song Qingshu could use force on others, but he could not bear to disobey her. So he gave up the idea and built many villas for her by the White Horse Lake and near the Jade Pen Villa in Liaoning. Firstly, she could take care of her son, and secondly, she could visit her often. The Wang family was in an awkward situation. Originally, there was definitely a consort position in their family, but it was troublesome to decide who should take it. If they let Li Qingluo take it, the Wang family could not afford to lose face. If they let Wang Yiyan take it, the Wang family could not get over it. Although Wang Ziding had thought of some ways, they were all rejected by the family, so it was delayed. However, there were still two vacant positions, Consort Li and Consort Hua, so there would be opportunities in the future. In addition, there were 9 consorts: Zhao Yi, Zhao Rong, Zhao Yuan, Xiao Yi, Xiao Yuan, Cheng Yi, Cheng Yi, Cheng Yi, Cheng Yi, and Cheng Yi. They were given to Yelu Nanxian, Li Qinglu, Zhao Yingluo, Wanyan Ping, Wanyan Zhongjia, Tajkis Hua Qingtong, Yang Miaozhen, and Yelu Yan. These people basically represented the powers of various countries, so they needed to be balanced. Many people were not without criticism. Li Qinglu was Jia Baoyu's wife in name, and Tajkis was even more ridiculous. Although she was once the most beautiful woman in the martial arts world, how old was her daughter now? However, Song Qingshu stood his ground against the opinions of the masses, and with the integration of various ethnic groups, such as the Mongolian, Jin, Qing, and Xixia countries, things like this were common, so everyone left it at that. Zhao Yingluo was different from her 2 heartless sisters. She was quite dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's replacement, and it took her a lot of effort to coax him back. In addition, there were 9 consorts: Li Yuanji, Fang Yi, Chu Fian, Zhong Ling, Gu Zixian, Jin Bingyun, Dan Yuru, He Taizhou, and Sang Feihong. Although Li Kaxiu betrayed them, the kindness of Li Yuanji, sacrificing her life to save them, was still there. In addition, there were many former subordinates of the Li family in the green camp of Jiangbei, so it was natural for her to be promoted. Jin Bingyun did not care much about her position. The reason she was willing to enter the palace was mainly to get closer to Song Qingshu, so she could take the opportunity to explore the heavenly Tao. Unfortunately, that guy always brought her to discuss the Tao of human relations. The others had contributed a lot to Song Qingshu's career, like He Taizhou and Sang Feihong, who were in charge of the Jianghu's intelligence network and worked hard to promote Song Qingshu's public opinion. If not for their low status, their positions would probably be higher. There are 13 consorts: Zheng Rou, Kazli, Shen Bijuan, Shuang'er, Lan Feng, Lu Wushuang, Cheng Ying, Zi, Pucha, Qiu Cao, Shui Sheng, Mu Jianpain, Luo Bing, and Shi Shangyun. Kazli did not have the title of consort, but she had a special fragrance, so the palace maids privately called her the fragrant consort. Other than that, Huang Rong refused the title of consort Li. She would rather stay in Goryeo and return to Peach Blossom Island sometimes. She no longer refused Song Qingshu's visit, but she was still unwilling to enter the palace. Because of her relationship with her husband's family, and because she did not want to enter the palace to compete with the other ladies for favor, Lady Ruan declined the invitation. Chen Yuan was known as a femme fatale. She was worried that she would bring misfortune and criticism to Song Qingshu, so she did not want to be conferred title. She was already tired of staying in the harem in her early years. Whether it was an imperial consort or a consort, she had been both. She really did not want to step into the palace again. Another important reason was that she did not want to cut off her daughter Aku's path. She was very clear about her daughter's thoughts. Nan Lan had always been in poor health, and she had not been well since she fell ill a few years ago. She felt that she did not have much time left, so she entrusted her daughter, Miao Rulin, to Song Qingshu to take care of. Qi Fang lived in seclusion in Ma Shipu, not wanting to get involved in any more troubles. Cheng Yaojia finally gave birth to a fat boy, which could be considered as fulfilling one of her wishes. Yili Xian and Ah Man lived with the Taiyan tribe, refusing the invitation from the messenger. They clearly did not want to leave the plains to live in the Central Plains. Ashio was specially brought to the capital by her grandfather by Zizai from the Snowy Mountain. Liwan often saw Li Macho sighing at home. She wanted to persuade her, but did not know how to. She was considering whether or not she should find Xiao Long Nu to be a middleman, But thinking of Xiao Longnu's naive personality, she was afraid that she would not be able to do the job. Li Macho was not the only one sighing. Madame Tang from the Jin Kingdom was also sighing. The Fu sisters also finally knew of Song Qingshu's identity. They held their swords and chased after him for a long time. Hai Wanli and Yalun both loved and hated Song Qingshu. If they met again, it would be more likely that they would meet on the battlefield. On this day, Song Qingshu was reading through a vast amount of memorials. He thought that being an emperor was not as carefree and happy as when he was alone. Suddenly, a palace maid came to report, "Your Majesty, it's not good, it's not good. Concubine Da and the Empress are fighting again." "They're fighting again?" Song Qingshu rubbed his forehead and quickly rushed to Kuan-Ning Palace. Before he arrived, he could hear Zhou Zhiruo and Zhao Min quarreling. "Now that I am the Empress, you have to kneel to me." "Hey, aren't you just relying on the fact that you married him first?" In terms of ability and ability, who among the concubines can you beat? This is fate. In any case, you fought with me for a lifetime, but in the end, you still lost to me. Hee. I'm so angry, I don't want to be concubined anymore. Song Qingshu happened to see Zhao Min running out angrily. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Min, don't say that out of anger." "I didn't say that out of anger. I don't want to be concubined anymore. I want to be the Empress." Zhao Min stared at him angrily. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. This, I know you are in a difficult position, so you don't want to be the only Empress. You could be like our Mongolia and have more than one Empress. Zhao Min said, "There is no such precedent in the Central Plains dynasty." Song Qingshu said embarrassedly, "What can't be changed? As the founding emperor, you can't change these things?" Zhao Min's eyes were red. Oh, you're pretending to be pitiful and seducing me again. Zhou Zhiruo came out with a smile. Zhao Min's expression returned to normal. "Anyway, I don't care. I can't be lower than this woman. That's not up to you." Zhou Zhiruo said gloatingly. Seeing that the two women were about to quarrel again, Song Qingshu finally exploded. "Stop quarreling. Come with me to the west. There are many countries in the west. I will give each of you a country. Not to mention the Empress. You can even be the Empress Dowager." Western expedition. Hearing his words, the eyes of the concubines who rushed over after hearing the news lit up. Although many women don't mind their status, they mind that their sons will be lower than others in the future. But the cake in the Central Plains is only so big, it can't be divided. If they go to the west, it will be completely different. The world is so vast, there is no need for them to fight. In the spring of the next year, Emperor Song Qingshu led the army to the west for the first time. The whole world began to tremble. The end of the book. Bestowing concubines turns out to be not a happy thing. I almost can't recognize the word concubine. This book has been written for more than 6 years. It is finally finished. When I wrote the words the end of the book, I trembled a little, for a moment in a trance. I couldn't believe it was true. Thank you to all the readers for your company over the past 6 years. There's no goodbye in the world. This book is finished. My new book, The Celestial Land, has been published on Zongjing. Now it has more than 300,000 words. If you're interested, you can take a look. In addition, the follow-up will be on the official account. Monk Lu Ru. There will be new chapters on some characters detailed endings, married life, and so on. In addition to some of the relatively unimportant characters mentioned before, there will definitely be some chapters for some popular characters. Of course, let me take a break first. I'm really tired. Finally, thank you again for all your support over the years. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 25-29. Stealing Fragrance Expert's new book, Earth Sex Fairy, has been released. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.